Thanks so much, Anne, Yala, and Alice, and thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. The first thing I wanted to do, again, is to acknowledge I'm on Wurundjeri country, that everywhere we live, work and play, we do so on stolen land. And I wanted to pay my respects to elders past, present, and young leaders coming up in the community. Today I'll be talking to you about the work of wildlife of the wildlife of the Central Highlands. I'm a bit nervous. And the amazing work we do using citizen science to protect our precious Victorian forests. Ever since I was a little kid, I have been in love with cool temperate rainforests. My mum used to take me to visit them, and I remember looking at the gnarled, twisted trees, the gnarled trunks of the myrtle beech trees and their gorgeous, delicate little leaves. You know, the ferns that the light dapples through, and hearing the birds all around you. I was smitten from a young age. And so when I had the opportunity to study them at university, I leapt at it. I studied cool temperate rainforests. I was looking at myrtle beech and southern sassafras. And I had a site at Tarrawonga National Park in Gippsland in Victoria. And I had a site in the Yarra Ranges National Park in the Central Highlands of Victoria. And it was a pretty great office to hang out in every day for the duration of my data collection. Again, you know, I saw like a pink robin with a gorgeous pink chest, and I saw, you know, these beautiful kind of lush areas. In fact, one day I was collecting data from a tree and I had my tape measure measuring the diameter of breast height and my clipboard, and out of the depth of the forest, quite dark, emerged a lyrebird, and it perched on this branch really close to me and fixed me with this stare. And I remember thinking, oh, the obvious thing, I've just miraculously become a lyrebird whisperer and summoned this bird to me from the forest. And then I thought a bit more logically and realized, oh, there must be a nest behind me. And sure enough, I had a look around, there it was, perched on the roots of a myrtle beech tree. And inside was the fuzzy belly, two little legs of a baby lyrebird. And I just marveled that this baby had stayed so quiet while I was there ruffling around with my clipboard. And that then the mama had come to check that everything was all right. And the thing that struck me as well was that a stone's throw from where I was working, the forest there, you'll find the same kind of forest. You'll find the same species. You'll find mountain ash and myrtle beech gullies. You'll find lyrebirds and their babies. But those forests are available for logging outside the national park. They're logged to make reflex ultra-white copy paper. They're logged by the coop. This is a coop. You can see each area, how it's logged and how it's left. They're then burnt to regenerate the area. Doesn't always work again. That's what it would look like from the ground. Those trees, they're habitat trees. And I'd ask you to consider, is it still a habitat tree? Could an animal survive that inferno? So what's going on here? I was in the national park where those animals and that habitat is protected. But in most of the native forests that remain are in regional forest agreement areas. So there are agreements that were entered into between the state and federal governments that dictate how logging is conducted in our native forests. A crucial thing to know is that when logging is conducted in a regional forest agreement area, it is exempt from the Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. That's really important. That's if you're going to have an impact on a threatened species, e.g. logging its habitat, you would typically need to go through the Act. You need to go through the minister, the relevant approvals, etc. But this exemption means that logging can happen in regional forest agreement areas without any of that. What does that mean? It means a lot of things, but crucially it means that it's very difficult to protect these areas, to protect habitat, the wildlife that inhabit them. One of the ways you could do it is via getting a buffer zone put around a sighting of a threatened species. But that's also really tricky. You know, you could find a sooty owl, but to get an area of forest protected for a sooty owl, you have to find its nest. That's like finding a needle in a haystack. You could try to find a quoll. They're endangered. They would get a buffer zone, but they have huge ranges and they're also really hard to find. They're a really cryptic animal, rarely caught on camera. So maybe you could try to find the now critically endangered leadbeater's possum. Tiny mammal, very agile, nocturnal. It's a real task to try and find a leadbeater's possum in the forest. But that's where Trent comes in, the original founder of WOTCH. So Trent was a thermographer. He was using skills in thermal imaging technology and using the technology and experience that he had in an entirely different field. But he understood the strength of the technology. He knew that he could use a thermal imaging camera, so a camera that detects heat in the environment, it was so strong it could find a mouse at 50 meters, detect the body heat of a mouse from 50 meters away. So you can see where I'm going. He figured out that he could use thermal imaging technology to find lead-beater's possums in the wild. So what you're looking at now, hopefully the video is playing for you as well, is footage of a lead-beater's possum. You can see the red heat of its body that the camera is picking up as it emerges from its hollow, and then it's off for a night out in the forest. And so Trent was using this technology for a number of years, but it's a big forest and there are a lot of possums that need saving. So that's how WOTCH was formed, Wildlife of the Central Highlands for WOTCH. We came together as a community group, myself and a bunch of others. We founded WOTCH and we started our work. So we're a volunteer-led citizen science community group that works to protect our precious forests in Victoria. And the way that we do that is first, excuse me, first we identify high priority logging croups, so those big areas I showed you before on the timber release plan. Once we've identified which area we want to go and survey, we conduct a survey. So we'll go looking for threatened fauna, like the possums, threatened flora, and habitats, so hollow-bearing trees, for example. We then create a report and submit it to the government and Vic Forest to hold them accountable, to get that buffer zone put in around a sighting, and hopefully to protect a patch of forest for now. So we use spotlighting techniques to find greater gliders. These are big, lumbering, gorgeous animals that you can easily find with a spotlight. They're not as agile as a leadbeater's possum, but they also don't get protected in the Central Highlands. So we submit this report still because it's collecting the data and it's acknowledging, while they're not technically threatened under under federal law, they're still a really important animal and they're in decline, so we still record sightings. We find sooty owls. Again, we don't find a nest, but we find them all the time by spotlighting. We go out on field days, bringing the community with us, who love to spend, just like I did for my fieldwork, love spending that gorgeous time in the forest. We look for hollow-bearing trees or stags like that one there. We put out remote sensing cameras to detect wildlife. This was footage, a rare footage of a quoll found in the Central Highlands that a different community member put up, but it's also part of the citizen science work going on in the Highlands with remote sensing cameras. One moment. And as I said, our bread and butter is finding the leadbeater's possum. And we have to make a real art out of finding it. So we have gotten really skilled and really thorough over the years. So what we do is if we find a possum, we need to get footage of it, panning down with light in the frame continually to demonstrate that we haven't edited the footage, it didn't go black and we didn't splice in a different bit of footage. We pan down to the GPS to show that the possum we're sighting now is verifiably found at the location on the GPS. We then write up a report with information about its habitat, the sighting, lots of different information. So we've become experts on the species that we're identifying in the forests using thermal imaging technology and other technology. Crucially, we need to keep the camera on them long enough to know that it's a leadbeater's possum. So there's a lot of, it's quite easy to mistake a sugar glider for a leadie. And you can see there the club tail of the leadbeater's possum on the left is a distinguishing feature. And the absence of that membrane on the sugar glider on the right, which they use to glide, of course. So the forests we're talking about, the Central Highlands of Victoria, they're the sightings that we've had of leadbeater's possums. That's the 200-metre protection buffer zone that they get around them. But the best science says that it should be a kilometre buffer zone. So we dread to think, well, the forest that was logged when really it should have been protected if we were listening to the best science, what these creatures need to survive. This is the extent of the 2009 Black Saturday bushfires. You can see it's getting pretty hectic up here. Historic logging, and when we superimpose scheduled logging, you can see that these forests are really getting hammered. And what does that mean for the wildlife? The wildlife that need them to survive. So the forest, you can see that lovely green patch there, that's the Central Highlands. That's where we operate predominantly. And the forests we're talking about are crucial carbon stores. So the most carbon dense forests on the planet. They're home to the mountain ash tree, which is the tallest flowering plant in the world. And I just always am boggled by the thought of all the nutrients and water needed to get to the top of a 100-metre plus tall tree to create a little blossom at the end of a branch. These forests are crucial for our water. They provide 98% of Melbourne's drinking water. As mentioned, they're crucial for biodiversity. Some of the species found here cannot be found anywhere else on the planet or anywhere else in the state. And on top of all that, these are critically endangered ecosystems. So they're at a high risk of total collapse by the end of this century. So they're very crucial for our air quality, for mitigating climate, for fresh water, for our species, and they're in dire straits. And so that's why citizen science is not just about protecting each patch at a time. It's part of a bigger picture. There are campaigns to protect our forests, to create a great forest national park that would protect forests for generations to come and protect all those things that I just mentioned that they're so crucial for. WOTCH was able to give evidence to the Senate inquiry into Australia's extinction crisis. So the work that we do extends beyond the Central Highlands. In addition, WOTCH provided a broad amount of the evidence used for the Friends of Leadbeater's Possum versus Vic Forests case, which said that logging was being conducted illegally, that exemption that logging benefits from under the EPBC Act shouldn't apply because of the way it had been conducted. And WOTCH is actually also taking Vic Forest to court now because of their response and their continued logging post our most recent bushfire season and how it impacts bushfire sensitive creatures. So it's a far-reaching tool that can have broad implications, and that's just the tip of the iceberg and the ways that it can achieve long-lasting change in our laws, in our response to the extinction crisis, in this broader campaign to protect the forests we know and love. And so when I think about citizen science, a couple of key things come to mind. The first is the ingenuity that it allows. Trent, who first started using the thermal imaging technology, was in an entirely different industry. Would we have figured out to do that, to protect all the forests that we've saved, if it weren't for him, with bringing in a new perspective? The next thing is passion and love. At WOTCH, we're driven by a love for the forests and for our deep passion to protect them. And so that's what keeps us going. And the other thing crucial about citizen science is it's rekindling connection with nature. This photo is from one of our camera traps. So it's a composite photo of a leadbeater's possum, a sugar glider, and a dusky antechinus. And I love this photo because it's bringing the spectacular wildlife that we have in our forests to people and reigniting that spark. And I wanted to leave you with this thought. I recently read something that along the, excuse me for paraphrasing, but along the lines of, now we feel like we can't play music unless we're really good at it, unless we're going to be a star. We can't be a painter unless we're really skilled. And so we kind of stop noodling around on the guitar at home, or we put away the pencils and paints. And I wonder, is that happening to us in the science world? Are we saying, oh, science you can really only do if you've got a lab and you've got the degree? But actually, we shouldn't be putting away our love for nature. We shouldn't be putting away those keen eyes, that enthusiasm for finding and exploring and loving the incredible nature that we've got all around us. And I think that citizen science is about doing that. It's about the fact that we should all be scientists and bringing us all in. So thank you so much for your interest in this topic. It's incredibly wonderful to be able to share it with you all. In closing, I'd like to just point you to a couple of ways that if you'd like to support and get involved with the work that WOTCH does, we'd very happily welcome you. You can follow us and support us on all our channels those are in the speaker notes. You can volunteer. We're a bit quiet on that front at the moment given lockdown in Victoria, but please sign up anyway. We'll let you know when opportunities arise. And of course, the old saying goes that we run on the smell of an oily rag. So if there's any funds, either if it's in money or time, that you can contribute to WOTCH, we are always grateful. And we'd love to have you come along and enjoy the marvel of nature with us sometime. So thank you.